Well, our next speaker is Chris Purley. Chris is Senior Vice President at the Dyax Corporation, and they're a multinational biopharmaceutical company that has been creating products for very serious diseases and works here. He's been in the biotech manufacturing sphere for many years, having spent some time at Wyeth and Bristol Myers. He comes to us with degrees from MIT and Boston University, and we want to hear all about what you do.
So I guess it seems like a lot of these high-tech industries smell bad. I remember when I first started, undergraduate, looking for some research opportunity at MIT. I decided to go to the biochemical engineering lab. The first thing that the grad student told me to do was weigh out some media for me. You know, we work with microorganisms, so you got to give them nutrients so they can grow. So just weigh out some media. So he had me weigh out this media. It's called yeast extract, and it's this airy powder like flour. As you're weighing it out, it goes into the air, and you breathe it in, and it smelled terrible. But I guess I got used to it. I've been in this business for 30 years. It worked out pretty well. So it's great to be here on the first day of summer. And I want to start off by telling you a little bit about Dyax. Dyax is a small company. We're about 140 employees. We're based in Burlington. And these are kind of the two pillars of our corporation. We've been around since 1995. We have our Calbator franchise. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. And then the what's called the phage display on the right-hand side, the phage display program, a licensing program. Think of that as R&D engine for a lot of large pharma companies. We have some research techniques for discovering molecules, and then we license those to larger companies. So those larger companies, we have about 13 products in clinical trials in areas such as multiple sclerosis, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. So for our product, I've shown here on the right-hand side, we're in an area called hereditary angioedema, a specialized area, a niche. This is a rare genetic disease that's characterized by severe and painful swelling episodes. You can see the photo up there. The young woman under her normal conditions and then suffering from attack. It's very painful, and particularly what can be problematic is if the swelling is in the neck, you can actually asphyxiate. So we have a medicine that was discovered by our company, developed by our company, and is used to treat these attacks. It's an expanding business. We have partners in Japan, China, Latin America that are working on developing the product and getting that product to the market in those territories. The other thing we're working on, which we're very excited about, is another product which doesn't have a name yet, so it's just Dyax 2930, and that's for prophylaxis treatment. So the idea with this product would be a person who has this condition, it's a hereditary condition, a person who has this condition would take 1 or 2 shots a month, and that would just prevent all of their attacks, so it sort of protect them from having attacks. So we're very excited about that, and that is going to start clinical trials, be the first in human later this summer. We'll be working on the manufacturing strategy for that product probably next year, and Massachusetts can certainly play a prominent role in that. The last item on there, the biomarker assays, also something we've developed just in the last 6 months. We think that the mechanism of this angioedema disease may play a role in other diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and if so, this would be a much larger market. So we're looking forward to seeing that. So I want to switch gears a little bit now, and as Barry mentioned, I've worked in a few different companies. I've worked in biotech and manufacturing in Massachusetts for more than 20 years now, and worked in a few different companies. So I just want to broaden out my remarks and talk about biotech manufacturing in Massachusetts. So biotechnology is a widely used term. One definition is the use of living systems and organisms to develop or make useful products. So biotechnology is used in agriculture to improve crop yields. It's used in animal husbandry for improving traits of animals. It's used in food processing, like making beer, that's biotechnology, we all know that one. And it can be used to produce chemicals and pharmaceuticals. So when I talk about biotech manufacturing today, I'm really talking about the use of biotechnology for making pharmaceuticals, making medicines. So it all started, kind of the dawn of biotechnology really got going in 1973 when some scientists actually out in California created the first recombinant DNA organism. So DNA is the sort of the blueprint for life. It tells our organisms how to make themselves, how to carry out the processes, and it directs the manufacturer of inside the cells a set of compounds called proteins. And it turns out that these proteins do all kind of things. They result in metabolizing sugar or growing bones, in the case of humans, what have you. So this was a technique, kind of the fundamental scientific breakthrough that started biotechnology. So what does all this mean? So what's the significance of it? Well, many of the diseases that we have are related to something malfunctioning about this class of molecules, proteins. So you can actually use those to make a medicine. Take diabetes, for example. In diabetes, patients are missing or have low levels of a protein called insulin. So for biotechnology, you take that DNA, that instruction for making insulin, you stick it in some microorganisms, grow up the microorganisms in a large vat, purify it, and poof, you've got your drug. And so the very first biotechnology drug was insulin, and that was approved back in 1982, the first biotech drug. And the guy at FDA, who was head of the FDA and signed that approval letter, he was interviewed a couple of years ago, and he said, except for my marriage license, that was the most important document I ever signed. So he recognized, and it was a very, very big moment for the industry. So today there's probably something like 100 different recombinant DNA proteins on the market, treating a variety of medical conditions. It's a very, very large industry, but it's a young industry, and that's kind of what I'm trying to illustrate on this graph. I've just put up for comparison some different industries about how long have we been manufacturing biotech drugs and the other ones you see up there. So you can see it's a relatively new and young industry, and so of course, because of that, it's characterized by innovation. So it's been going, 1982 to today, it's about 30 years. It's been going about 30 years. And Massachusetts companies, a number of them that I've listed here, were among the early pioneers of biotech manufacturing. The industry is maturing. We've been around for 30 years. The technology has advanced, and it's starting to converge. It is converging. When I started, there were probably sort of 6 or 8 techniques that were used in biotech manufacturing for growing the cells and different technologies and producing the proteins. Today, there's 2, and they're pretty similar. So the technology is converging. The scientists and the engineers are getting to the point where they've got this process optimized, and the rate of innovation is starting to slow down. And so I think if I'm going to go out on a limb and talk about what may happen here in Massachusetts in 10 or 20 years in this field, we can certainly look to other high-tech manufacturing industries, what happens when technology matures. I think in particular, if I'll use the analogy of antibiotic manufacturing, that's a type of biotechnology. It's also done using microorganisms. That started in, I had the example of penicillin in an earlier slide. That started in about 1940s, and for 40 or 50 years, the United States was the world leader in manufacturing antibiotics and did most of all the manufacturing. Today, there's not really a single major plant left. They've all closed, and they've all moved to lower cost regions. When the technology stagnates and is mature, it's tough for Massachusetts to compete. I think we have the innovation economy here. We do really well. That's our niche when we have to combine technology with science and work in advancing fields. It's starting to happen in, I think, proteins. 10 years ago, all of the plants were in US or Europe for biotech manufacturing. Today, there's a few between Singapore and South Korea. There's a few. One of the major biotech manufacturers just announced last month that they're going to build a plant in China. So you can see it's starting to happen. We certainly have a run of, I don't know, 10 or 20 years, something like that, in the state. But I think we have to move on. There's other kinds of advances happening in biotechnology. I've listed some of them up there. These are sort of different kinds of drugs. It's kind of the next wave of technology, if you will. Interference RNA, there's Alnylam is a strong company in Massachusetts. They've actually built a manufacturing plant right in Cambridge, near Fresh Pond, pretty near Fresh Pond. Gene therapy is another new wave. There's all of these, there's around 10 Massachusetts companies. Bluebird Bio just did their initial public offering earlier this week, $100 million. So, that's a good advance for them, but they started 20 years ago. So this is real science. It gives you a sense of how, and that's their initial public offering after 20 years. And stem cell therapy, there's a number of companies. That's, one is in Burlington. They are administering stem cells to go into your body and start repairing organs. Kidney is what their trial is on. So I think these are very exciting fields. I think that Massachusetts can excel in them. I'm personally really intrigued and excited by stem cell therapy. I think that in my lifetime, I think they're going to be able to grow me a new heart, grow me a new lung, grow me a new arm. All these things like this in a manufacturing setting. It's going to be just incredible, and I think Massachusetts is certainly positioned very, very well to play a lead role in that. Thank you.